I feel like effective horror games have certain criteria that need to be met in order to keep the player engaged in an experience that's trying to scare you. For starters, there needs to be certain emotional beats that are consistent throughout, such as a general sense of dread that's maintained throughout the game, fueled by things like atmosphere and anxiety about what's coming next. Second, there needs to be some kind of mystery fueled by world building, fed slowly to keep the player's interest. A level of uncertainty needs to be maintained so that the player feels compelled to continue despite the potential of being exposed to horrific things. Lastly, it needs to be made up of well-designed puzzles that aren't insultingly easy, but also aren't so difficult that they're impossible to discern on your own. Puzzles are a good vehicle in horror games to fuel exploration and isolation, because if the player feels too powerful, then we start to move more into an action game. Signalis stands out because, like the exemplars of the genre, each of these pieces are well executed and build on one another to create a product greater than the sum of its parts. The world that Signalis takes place within is a dystopian future with advanced technology and space travel. The nation of Yusan is at war with a hostile force referred to only as the Empire. You play as Elster, a humanoid robot known as a replica, who wakes up from cryosleep to find that the spacecraft they're aboard has crashed on an unknown planet. While exploring the ship, the player encounters documents and manuals that provide context to the situation in classic survival horror fashion. As you check the ship's systems, you discover that your pilot, a human referred to as a Gestalt, is missing and set out to locate them. Immediately, Signalis begins to build a sense of mystery and dread. There's little to no sound aboard the ship. There's only an ominous silence with only the sound of your footsteps and doors opening and closing reverberating through the vessel. When you finally leave the ship in search of the pilot, you find yourself in a military facility that seems to be plagued by some unknown illness. As the player explores the facility and uncovers more documents, they learn more and more about the game world. The facility appears to be a place to train Gestalt officers as commanders and replicas as a labor and military force. You also find that there are various classifications of replicas with specific skills, equipment, and roles that they typically serve. Information is spread out enough that reading it isn't cumbersome, and the information about the facility and unexplained phenomena quickly immerses the player in a fog of mystery that drives the narrative forward. Gameplay in Signalis is mainly a third-person 2.5D experience largely built on navigating a room-based map and dealing with enemies that appear around the facility. There are a total of 3 chapters in Signalis, each with specific maps and areas to explore. While the areas are not incredibly large, various locked and broken doors create a labyrinth that must be navigated carefully. Each death returns you to the main menu, but you are able to save at a computer in specific safe rooms throughout the game. There are various key items that are used as solutions to puzzles that must be solved to proceed, and there is a stash in the safe room that helps manage your 6 inventory slots. With limited ammunition and healing items, the player must take care not to overexpend resources in case they're needed later. You'll never know when you'll need your resources, and as you continue to play the game, you realize that your resources are more limited than you initially think. Enemies will randomly come back to life if left alone, but can be made permanently dead with another limited item. While this seems like a simple idea to make resources feel more scarce, I think it's a very effective decision to maintain a level of suspense. If enemies can come back to life, you never become comfortable exploring the facility. You need to remain on alert even when backtracking through areas you've already been through. You find yourself needing to keep track of where enemies are, locations of puzzles and objectives, all while managing your limited inventory to make sure you have everything you may need in the future. Enemies don't follow you between rooms, but having these potential combat situations be constantly present, Signalis manages to maintain an anxious feeling throughout the entire playtime. Signalis stands out as an incredibly intentional experience in my opinion. There are times where events can seem disorienting or confusing, but even these seemingly random moments all culminate into the climax of the game. It's very difficult to talk about Signalis at length without spoiling anything because everything is so interconnected. There is very little dialogue in Signalis, and the story is largely told through documents and the events that the player experiences. Bits and pieces start to come together and build into a complex tapestry of intrigue and emotion. I was very impressed with how even the smallest details seemed to retroactively come together and make sense at the end of the game. I was also impressed with how the documents and messages throughout the facility subtly provide insight into the game's mechanics. Instruction manuals and posters throughout the military facility provide information within the context of the game world, such as, be respectful and don't run in the facility because everyone can hear you, or be sure to travel light and have no more than 6 possessions. Messages like these inform the player of how to play the game without breaking immersion with pop-up windows or giant floating button prompts. Even the puzzles throughout the game are more than just puzzles to be solved by the player. Solutions to the puzzles are often inferred from documents found throughout the facility or through pattern recognition of subtle details that indicate where you should be looking. The level of difficulty of the puzzles is well balanced, and as a result, I feel that Signalis respects the player's intelligence and ability to solve the puzzles, rather than resorting to just telling the player the answer like more recent titles. Most puzzles double as obstacles and a means of further expanding the game world. Whether through the context of the puzzle itself or through the means of finding the solution, puzzles often provide additional fragments that build the overall narrative. There are very few gripes that I have with Signalis, but one that comes to mind is managing your stash of items can become cumbersome. You're not able to perform typical inventory functions like combining items or reloading weapons when you're in the stash user interface. Stored weapons keep their current ammunition count, and if they're in your stash, you have to remove the weapons and the ammunition from your stash, close the stash, open your inventory to reload your weapon, and then put them back into the stash. The limited inventory of 6 items also exacerbates this problem because if you want to carry a specific weapon with backup ammunition, you're now limited to 4 inventory slots. If you want to carry health items in case you're in trouble, now you only have half of your inventory available. While the limited inventory does increase the number of times you have to backtrack through areas to collect items or solve puzzles, it feels like Signalis could have benefited from having 1 or 2 additional inventory slots. But my complaints with the inventory system pale in comparison to the praise that I have for the game. Signalis is clearly inspired by a myriad of things, from anime to original PlayStation survival horror games, and there's even a visual filter that recreates a CRT television image quality. Thankfully, these references don't feel forced to me, and as a result, Signalis feels both like an original take on survival horror and a love letter to the entire genre. Everything from the story, gameplay mechanics, and aesthetics are clear homages to the things that inspired the developers. Signalis is an exceptional game, which is even more impressive upon learning that Rose Engine was a 2-person development team, and Signalis lives up to its billing as classic survival horror. Even if you aren't a fan of the genre, I'd say it's a must-try title. Thanks for watching, take care, and remember, keep having fun.